I hereby grant permission to Westwood Media Center to record the meeting. Is there anyone else who wishes to record the meeting? I see no affirmative responses. So with that, I will mention that my colleague Rob Gotti will be joining us by audio only for at least part of the meeting. And I will move right into the chair's updates. And I want to report that Westwood Day 2023 will be held on Saturday, September 23rd, rain or shine. The festivities will kick off on Friday, September 22nd on Flayhive Field with a football game and fireworks to follow afterwards. The list of activities for Saturday includes the 9 a.m. 5K run, followed by the 10 a.m. fun run, and then from 10 to 3, activities at the vendor village and the food court with entertainment. As you know, this is a huge undertaking, and so the Westwood Day team is looking for volunteers for the many tasks at hand, including event setup, parking monitors, greeters, activity monitors, and cleanup crew. So please, if you can, volunteer. You can sign up in 2.5 to 3.5 hour shifts, and all volunteers receive an event t-shirt. Please sign up at www.westwoodday.org and click on volunteers. Again, that's www.westwoodday.org. With that, I will turn it over to Chris Coleman for the town administrator update. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Marianne. So following that theme of Westwood Day, last week was the last week of summer programming for our recreation department, and they certainly did a fabulous job. This past summer, they serviced 5% more registrants than they did last year, which last year was a record-breaking year, so this year was another record-breaking year. They also did so with the same, with transforming the pool, the new deck, upgrading the School Street playground, hiring and onboarding a therapeutic recreation specialist, and reconfiguring their office, as well as increasing some program offerings. I think it's important to recognize the work that the recreation department has done, and all the members of the recreation department to provide those services to the community. And I just want to thank them on behalf of all the town, but also for their ongoing work and their professionalism in providing those well-needed and well-requested services.
Great. Thank you, Chris. And thank you to the rec department. With that, we will move right into scheduled action. And our first item is a public hearing on the Aston Martin Boston request for a Class 1 auto dealer license at 340 Providence Highway. I will first accept a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Joe, you're on mute.
Thank you, Marianne. Second.
Okay, roll call. Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So let's see, with us, we have Karen Flynn, our licensing specialist. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you.
Be able to present to us on this?
Yes, our applicant has requested a continuance at this time until the September 11th select board meeting. There was a few items that required more departmental review before we were prepared to recommend the application to the board. And so they submitted that in writing on August 18th, and that was submitted in your packet. So I would like to see if the board would be so inclined to vote for a continuance for this public hearing.
Thank you very much, Karen. Any comments or questions from my colleagues? If not, I will entertain a motion to continue.
I move that we continue this public hearing to our September 11th select board meeting to be held at 6 p.m. by Zoom.
I'll second.
All right, roll call vote. Joe,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
I vote aye as well. So that public hearing is now continued. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
And we'll move into a second public hearing. This having to do with a request for a common Victualler license or CB license by Poke Brothers. Glad we have you with us again, Karen, and I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing on this.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Joe,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
I vote aye as well. I will note that I believe we have Shi Zheng here, who is the manager from Poke Brothers University DR LLC. Welcome.
Perhaps his son as well, Jerry's son, might also be in the audience assisting his father.
Oh, thank you. Would you like to take us through this, Karen?
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here tonight to introduce Poke Bros restaurant to the board. They're taking over the former Which restaurant location at University Ave. For those of you who might be more familiar with the building being referred to as the Panda Express building and or the Dolomiti Jewelers building, whatever your inclination is for being out at University Ave in that building. Poke Bros is coming to us with a similar business model as Chipotle and also our recent Fireballs restaurant that opened up here in town, where it's a very customized menu and the customer comes into the restaurant and has protein choices along with either greens or rice and loads of toppings to choose from. It's a small space. It's only 1,200 square feet, but they're going to have 20 seats inside the restaurant. Food will be obviously available for sit down as well as takeout. They're contemplating their hours right now to be 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily. And there are no outdoor seats at this time. That may be something that comes up later on, but as of this application, there's no outdoor seating being suggested. The manager, Shi Zheng, Corey, was satisfactory, and all the paperwork was also satisfactory for this application. The health department has done their final inspection and are ready to issue their food permit. The building department is going out tomorrow for their final inspection. And should they successfully complete that final inspection, the health department will be issuing their food permit based on the board's decision this evening. And the fire department has also signed off on this application. So the only thing pending would be building tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Karen. It sounds wonderful. And welcome, Mr. Zheng, and welcome both of you. I do understand they have 2 other locations in Rhode Island.
Yes, a franchisee, yes.
Any complaints with respect to those locations?
No.
Wonderful. Any questions or comments from my colleagues?
Welcome.
I think it's, yeah, welcome to town. I think it's a great concept and wish you much success.
Ditto to that. It sounds delicious, and we wish you great success. Let me take public comment on this. Open this up for public comment. This is a public hearing. I am not seeing any questions or comments. I'll just give it another few seconds here. I'm not seeing any public comment. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
I move the select board approve a common victualler license for Poke Brothers DR LLC DBA Poke Brothers Bowls 127 University Avenue, pending completion of a final public safety inspection and issuance of a food permit from the Health Department, and for the electronic signatures of the Select Board to be affixed thereto.
I'll second that motion.
Right, roll call. Joe,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Welcome to Westwood, Mr. Zhang. Thank you very much. We look forward to going over to Poke Road.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Karen.
Have a good night.
You
Madam
too.
Chairman, if I may, now need a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you so much, Pat. I will entertain that motion.
I move that we close the public hearing from August 28th for Poke Brothers University DR LLC DBA Poke Brother Bowls, 127 University Ave, public hearing.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote. Joe,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. The public hearing is now closed. Thank you again, everyone.
Have a
Really-
good night. Thank you.
You too. Moving on our scheduled action, we're very happy to welcome our town planner. Elijah Romulus is with us to talk to us tonight about a global covenant of mayors for climate and energy. Welcome, Elijah.
Thank you, Madam Chair and the Select Board for having me this evening. Yes, I am the town planner. My name is Elijah Romulus. I am charged with drafting the Climate Action, Resiliency, and Sustainability Plan, or CRS plan for short, for the town of Westwood. And in doing so, there's also actually an international effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and address the harmful effects of climate change. And that coalition is called the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy, or GCoM for short. And so it's one of the largest global alliances for city climate leadership over 6 continents and 10,000 local governments. And so while I'm crafting this plan, I figured it would be a good idea to propose to the town select board to sign on to this covenant. And some of the requirements that it takes is, just signing a letter that's mentioning that you are taking action to reduce greenhouse gases, developing a greenhouse gas inventory, which has already been completed. Our energy manager, Tom Philbin, has actually done amazing work, and some of this stuff has already been covered. So we also have a requirement of assessing climate risks and vulnerabilities, which the town has already done through comprehensive planning and hazard mitigation planning. And the final 2 kind of requirements fall within the purview of this climate action plan that I am currently undertaking. So I would respectfully ask if the select board were interested in signing on to this covenant.
That's terrific. Thank you, Elijah. Obviously, a climate action plan has been an important priority for the town coming out of the comprehensive plan, and we're really excited that you are working on it so actively. And I just want to mention, if I may here, that the Community and Economic Development Department and the Climate Action Task Force are hosting 2 visioning sessions, community visioning sessions on the Climate Action Plan in October and November. So the first is Thursday, October 19 at 6 p.m. at the library, and the second on November 2nd at 6 p.m. at the library, which is really exciting. And hopefully we'll get a lot of folks to come out for that so that we can really work together on a community climate action plan. With that, I'll take comments or questions from my colleagues.
Madam Chair, I have a couple questions for Elijah.
Please.
Elijah, first of all, welcome. Nice to have you in front of us. Welcome to Westwood.
Thank you.
I have a few questions with respect to what this letter that you're asking us to sign sort of commits us to, because I know there are a number of pledges that for things that we would develop and or do, and I'm just curious as to, has anyone assessed what type of cost that might have for the community in terms of whether it's resources, human resources, or other things that we may need to purchase with respect to meeting these goals?
Yes. So the requirements, there's a list of 5 items. One would be signing the letter itself. Another would be a greenhouse gas inventory, which the town has already completed. So that's one check off. The second would be a climate risk, an assessment of climate risks and vulnerabilities, which the town has already completed through the hazard mitigation plan, municipal vulnerability preparedness plan, so the HMP plan and the MVP plans. And then the final 2 are, defining climate mitigation and resiliency and energy targets, as well as creating an action plan. And both of those fall within the CRS plan that the Community and Economic Development Department, as well as the Climate Action Task Force, will be embarking as I run point in creating this plan. So we do have the town resources and staff that will cover this, and much of the commitment we have already been doing with Westwood's amazing work through the different departments already.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of the work that we have going on. I just want to make sure that we understand if there are any potential time-bound additional expenditures that would be a result of signing this today, or do we need to explore that any further?
There aren't any time-bound issues that I'm aware of, and this covenant actually opens the possibility for funding through this coalition.
Thank you.
Could you speak more about that, Elijah?
Yes. So there's a funding mechanism that the actual Covenant of Mayors, they have regional sections, and through the United States region, they would potentially be able to fund certain technical assistance type of projects. It was the application didn't go into that much detail in terms of what type of funding they'd offer, but they did mention technical assistance as one of them.
Great. Joe, any questions or comments?
No, nice work, Elijah. I'm not surprised that Tom Philbin has already put us probably on second base with this. He's a tremendous resource, so I'm glad you two get to work together on this. He's a great guy. But no, I'm all on board.
Yes, and I would be remiss to mention that our housing and land use planner, Amanda Wolf, presented an idea for this as well, and I just want to give her some credit as well.
Awesome. Well, if there are no further questions, I will entertain a motion on this.
I move the select board authorize the town administrator to sign the Global Covenant of Mayors for climate and energy commitment, and for the town to undertake measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, prepare for the impacts of climate change, and to increase sustainable practices and increase access to clean and renewable energy.
I'll second the motion.
All right, roll call vote. Joe,
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Elijah, thank you very much for all of your work on this, and we look forward to hearing more as you progress on the plan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on our scheduled action, we have a request for ARPA funds relative to the Pine Hill Elementary School. And with us,
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
yes,
Just, would the board be okay if we just ask Stephanie just to give us a little walkthrough through the ARPA funds and the current balances and what prior boards have authorized for the ARPA funds first?
absolutely. That would be great.
Thank you.
Sure.
Stephanie.
I'm just gonna do a quick run through. I'll share my screen if that's okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
All right, I'll try to make this quick. It's more just a basic overview and a quick reminder of ARPA and the funds that we've done so far, and just a reminder of the restrictions and the uses for those funds. So I know you've seen this before. There are basically two categories that all the funds are in, and within that there's specific eligible spending requirements. The most flexible one is what we call, you'll hear us refer to as revenue loss. It's to replace lost public sector revenue. And then the other requirements fall within what we'll call the restricted funds. They support COVID public health and economic response, provide premium pay for eligible workers, and invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So those are sort of the eligible spending categories. So specific funding not allowed, just a background on that: transfer funds to pension obligations, reduction of taxes, funding into reserve accounts, and use for debt services. All the funds that we talk about are subject to reporting and compliance requirements. And then just a reminder of key dates: the funds, all ARPA funds given to the town must be fully obligated by December 31st of 2024 and expended by December 31st of 2026. So like I was saying, there's two categories. One we refer to as revenue loss or revenue replacement, and recipients can use these funds on any government service traditionally provided by the government, in this case, the town. And then the other buckets we refer to as restricted funds. So all of that money came in two separate allocations, what we call direct to Westwood, which is a total direct funding that came to the town that was in the amount of 1.7 million. And this was all in the revenue loss category, which does not require further application process, I'll point out. And then the other bucket, the other allocation type, was through Norfolk County. So that total amount was just over 3 million. This does require application and approval through a few different steps, which is facilitated through Norfolk County. And the prorated amount that the town received in the revenue loss category through Norfolk is just over 500,000. So the total revenue loss is about 2.2. An update came to that just this past February. The county had approved a recalculation of the available revenue replacement funds and actually increased Westwood's revenue loss amount from 331,000 to 552,000. So this is just a quick chart that shows sort of what I was just speaking about. Up top, you'll see the different categories: the restricted and revenue loss. And so, as I was saying, the 1.7 came direct to Westwood in revenue loss, and then the 522 through Norfolk for a total of that 2.2 million. And then under the restricted bucket, we have a total of about 2.5. And of that, the board has already approved 4 projects. Just a reminder of that: it was increased program for social services, a library project related to HVAC work, the current Hanlon Deerfield project for HVAC in the amount of 1.1, and then the School Street playground renovations, which have taken place. And I do have a positive update on this. At the time I made this slide, we had received the funds for 3 of these approved projects. They are now all received. So just today, we also received the 190,000 for the School Street playground. So the town is in receipt of all these funds that we have applied for through the restricted bucket. We also got approval from the board for $25,000 for a townwide disability audit. That came from the revenue loss section. So then the real important numbers are just down the bottom here, the total current balances. So it's about just over $1 million for the restricted funds, about 2.2 million for the revenue loss, for a total of about 3.2 million. Stop sharing that. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair,
Yes, please.
Stephanie, remind me, I know at some point in the near future, we may be looking at a need to replace the INET, right? Is that eligible under any of this, whether restricted or revenue loss category?
That would be something that would be allowable under the revenue loss category. Like I said, that is the most flexible. So if it's anything the town would have provided a service for that was lost out on due to COVID in any way, that is something under that category. And that 1.7 I was discussing for the revenue loss is something that the town currently has in our account. So it wouldn't require any additional application.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. So with us, we have John Cummings, the chair of the Permanent Building Committee, and we have our energy manager, Tom Philbin, and Roberto Fitzgerald from Dorr & Whittier. Welcome, all of you.
Thank you for having us.
John, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, what we'd like to do is we're asking the select board to submit an additional application for the Norfolk County for the restricted ARPA funds for the Hampton Deerfield project, which is now the Pine Hill Elementary, and additional amounts of $1,027,249 for the HVAC system. We know that this has already been approved by the Norfolk County Commissioners as a usable spot for the restricted funds.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments from my colleagues?
Just a point of clarification, Madam Chair.
Please.
Yeah, so the use is an eligible use. The amount of $1,027,249 has not been approved by the board yet, but prior board did approve the 1.1 million, which was approved by Norfolk County, as Stephanie said.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this?
None.
Yes, I have a couple for John. So the additional 1,027,000, I imagine that because if I remember, as the select board appointee to the PBC, the HVAC system itself, as a total of the project, was, remind me, $7 million or somewhere in that range?
So essentially, the HVAC system is a $12 million system, and $7 million of that was approved by the Norfolk County Commissioners as where you could use the restricted funds from ARPA.
Okay. And Chris, we currently don't have any other additional infrastructure projects or anything that would qualify under restricted, and we do have a time frame in which to have projects identified to be able to utilize these funds, correct?
At this time, we do not, correct.
Okay. And then, so John, I imagine with an influx of money like this to the HVAC system, that might free up some other monies for the project to be able to utilize. Do you have any thoughts on how that might be utilized?
Yes. So with this going to the HVAC system, we would realize in the contingency basically the same amount, and we would be able to go with my recommendation to the PBC at the next meeting would be to take the EPC, which is the engineered procured construction for the solar plant on top of the school. If we don't do that, the town will do the PPA, but by the project, buying out the EPC right in the beginning, the town realizes a $3.3 million financial gain. It also realizes the use of the electricity by the school, which, so they get to use the electricity generated by the solar plant right away, which is about 70% of what they will actually use. So that we're still gonna have to buy 30% of the electricity, but we'll be able to get this electricity right off the start. It also means as for the renewable energy, the electrical credits, the town will get to realize that on day one, not on day 20 years.
Hey, John, I see that you have Tom Philbin with you. Can
Yes.
he do us a favor, and for those of us not as inside baseball, maybe sort of just decode some of the alphabet soup of EPC and PPA, et cetera?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. Of course, with a PPA, the system would be owned by Ameresco, and they would essentially sell us power back. With the EPC, we own the system, and we retain Ameresco to maintain the system over the 20 years, and perhaps for longer, but at least the initial 20 years of the program. The difference to the town is literally in the millions of additional savings by putting up the money in the first place. So it's really, in my opinion, almost a no-brainer in terms of the financial benefits to the town and to the schools.
And it sounds like it would certainly help towards all of the prior goals and commitments that we're making with respect to what we just authorized Chris to sign on behalf of the town for the.
Oh, yes, it fits right into the sustainability plan and the long-term. All of these things are perfect additions, and they work very well. This one in particular, this school is on the cusp of being probably one of the most efficient schools in the state of Massachusetts, and certainly a model for all future building that we might be doing in the town.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Joe, any questions or comments?
No, well explained. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie.
Indeed, and thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald, for being here and for all of your work on the project. If there are no other questions or comments on this, I will entertain a motion.
All right, I move the select board vote to submit an application in the amount requested of $1,027,249 in HVAC systems work for the new Pine Hill School to be applied to Westwood's restricted American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, funding with Norfolk County.
I'll second the motion.
Right, roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well.
Aye.
I heard you. Yep, we got you. I vote aye as well.
All
right. Thank you, John. Thank you, Roberto. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you all so much, and thank you for helping us with everything as we've been going along. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for support.
Nice
You
work.
bet. Moving on, we have a second request relative to ARPA. This one having to do with municipal buildings access control and cameras. Chris, are you taking us through this?
Happy to do so.
Thank you.
Yes. So our facilities director, Jim McCarthy, our IT director, representation from police and fire, looked at a variety of improvements for our access control system and also some of our security cameras that we have in or outside of town facilities. One of the things that we're trying to do is to have some type of synergy with the system. So right now we have multiple systems dating back to 2004. What we're recommending to the board, asking for your authorization, is to use up to $250,000 so we could improve the access control and the cameras in some of these areas, to include municipal buildings, Carby Street, we call it the Islington Station, Station 2, the main library, the police station, town hall, the senior center, and Wentworth Hall. This would allow, when we're talking about as part of emergency preparedness, and when we have to have facilities locked down, we will be able to lock down these locations and unlock these locations remotely. And we will also have technology that will be able to use, so authorized individuals will gain access to the buildings.
That's great. Anything more on that, Chris, or?
And that's really the nuts and the bolts of it.
Okay. All of which is important for public safety.
Oh, 100%. So like I said, the fire station 2, police station will be heavily involved. Oh, I'm sorry, I did forget one thing. As part of the remote access, our dispatchers will have access to all the access controls on all these buildings. So if there is a situation where we need to have remote access or remote lockdown of a facility without having a team member go to an exterior door to do it, that could be done remotely by someone in our communications division or through our facilities division.
Excellent. And I take it that the chiefs are behind this.
Yes. This, and we are, I'm sorry, I think it's important to understand that we're going to the system that we are currently using in the fire department, which seems to be going very well compared to the system that we've been using in other facilities. So we are trying to mirror what we have and upgrade what we have in the fire buildings, in the fire stations, to be the same, number one, but also to take that technology and the positive experience we've had there and apply it to other municipal buildings.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments from my colleagues?
No, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just got through the horrible accident site, so I am going to ask Joe to make this motion when you get to it.
Great. Are you able to second, Rob?
I am able to second, I just can't make the motion.
Yep, you bet.
I don't know how he did it this long. Strong work, Rob.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm impressed.
Well, I will entertain a motion, Joe, if you're ready.
Almost. I have one quick question.
Oh, sure.
If the system is hacked, is there a manual override in place, which I'm sure there is?
There are, thank you, Joe. Yes, there are backups in place. That's why one of the reasons why we had our IT director as part of the team.
Great. I'm prepared to make the motion, Marianne, if you think we're ready.
Terrific.
I'd like to make the motion, the select board approve the use of American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA revenue loss funds up to $250,000 to purchase a new access control and camera system to be installed at Carby Street, Fire Station number 2, the main library, the police station, town hall, senior center, and Wentworth Hall, or as needed.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. That's great.
Thank you, board.
Yeah, I think that's a very good use. With that, we're going to move to new business. Rob, are you going to be okay to participate?
I'm okay to participate. However, I know we had talked about the town administrator's review. I am probably still at this point now 25, 30 minutes out from being on camera. So we may need to slide that one to the next meeting if it gets to that. Okay.
Okay, we'll see where we're at. And we'll see where we're at with you and with timing. So why don't we then go to under new business to the fiscal year 2023 year-end financial update with Stephanie. Welcome again.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna share my screen one more time. Okay. All right. So around this time every year, there's significant activity happening on three fiscal years all at once. So we'd like to provide an update to the board on financial activity, definitely specifically on the FY23 closeout. We're also going to talk about where we are in the FY24 budget, because even though it's been going on already and we started that July 1st, we're still sort of in 24 and wrapping up all the activity that needs to happen for that budget. And then also looking ahead for the upcoming budget season, already talking about FY25. So the year-end closeout for FY23, which came to a close on June 30th of this year, we had a few things that came to a close. So free cash certification, I will point out first, it's completed in the fall. The Department of Revenue certifies our free cash. This presentation is a little bit on the earlier side, so I don't have that number for you just yet. We're working with our town accountant and our town assistant town treasurer to finalize that and for submission. So at the next meeting, I'm hoping to have the certification for that. The state reporting requirements happen around this time of year in October, so those will be coming up, the Department of Revenue and the Department of Education. So we're working towards that. The FY23 audit is happening. The second and third week in September, our on-site auditors will be here for FY23 financials. We call the ACFR. It used to be the CAFR. So that needs to be completed by December 31st of this year. So we're working on that. We'll also have an audit committee meeting that time in September with the auditors on site. And I will report the findings and how that goes to the select board along the way. We also have some items that are still currently wrapping up for FY24. As I said, I know we've been in this fiscal year for about 2 months already, but we still need to finalize property values. So that happens around October and November. So that will be coming up. We need to finalize and get DOR approval for all our FY24 values. And this will include getting final numbers for the new growth that's happened into FY24. So as we went through the budget process for the current fiscal year, that new growth number, as you can remember, was all estimates. So that will be finalized coming up over the next couple of months in this fall. We will also have the FY24 tax rate. That's a hearing that we'll have in front of the select board in November. I believe last year it was about mid-November. That classification hearing will be, I'll reach out and have a date determined. Like I said, it will be in that month. That's where we will set the shift factor for residential and commercial, that split rate that the town has. We'll also submit that FY24 tax rate for approval to the DOR. And then what we call actual FY24 tax bills will be mailed out January 1st of 2024 with the final numbers confirmed after that process. And then just looking forward, we're going to be starting the new budget process for fiscal year 2025. So just some key dates to remember. Town meeting this year for this next budget year will be May 6th of 2024, which seems like a ways off, but it's coming up already. So that's when the FY25 budget will be voted. Just by the charter, the select board is required to present to the town that FY25 budget recommendation by February 1st. That's usually about 90 days before town meeting. So we usually have that date of February 1st for the deadline. And then FinCom will review from there. And per the charter, they are required to conduct one or more public meeting on that operating budget at least 14 days prior to the submission at town meeting. Those hearings usually happen in March. So the budget presentations will really start ramping up in February. So from now through January, you'll probably be seeing me a lot as we start going through the budget development, and we'll review any operating capital budget request that comes in from the different departments and how we're developing those, any update on financial projections, including review of expenditures and revenue. And like I said, that February 1st date, just to keep in mind, is when we issue the FY25 budget recommendation. And then May 6th, annual town meeting. So in today's meeting, we'll be really looking closely at the review of FY23 year-end close, including, like I said, free cash. I'll have at the next meeting, but that's sort of this time of year, I'll be updating you on the new number for certified free cash, which is our current reserve balance. FY23 state aid, how that went and what we received throughout the year and how on track we are. And then meals and hotel tax revenue. In November, we'll have that tax classification hearing. I will be continuing to update the board with any financial materials, especially related to the FinCom. And then in November and December, the meeting to review the FY25 budget, and just continuing to update you as we go through that cycle. The overall summary is good. So overall, FY23 closed out very successfully. No issues to report. It was a good year. Our entire finance team worked hard to close that out with no issues. Real estate tax and motor vehicle revenue collections were on target, which is great, and the collections remain strong, similar to previous years. Meals and hotel tax revenue was down for a couple of years during COVID, is definitely rebounded. All positive things to report for that. Expenditures closed out successfully. Departments really work hard. Our department has worked very hard to keep within their budgets, which we appreciate. And then any overages, any unexpected costs that sort of threw us out of balance in our budgets were able to be covered by, thank you, select board transfers or any town meeting articles 1 and 2. So in summary, just good news overall, closed out successfully with revenue expenditure results on track with prior years. So just a reminder, the final FY23 budget for revenue is $113.6 million. Taxes, as I've said a number of times, are the main revenue source for the town, which is very usual for a town like Westwood's, 80% of our revenue. And it's great to report that it's a very steady and reliable source. So as you can see, taxes for FY23, $85.9 million were collected on time, which is 99% collection rate, which remains strong and consistent with previous years. As of June 30th, 2023, any what we call outstanding taxes, so tax title, and this is cumulative of all years, was $246,000. So that's great news. It's down from prior years. So that means, you know, our collections are remaining strong and we don't have as many outstanding taxes. And a reminder, that's all years, so not just this year. And as you can see, as a percentage of our overall $85.9 million, that's a very low amount. Tax deferrals is a program that we offer to the elderly residents in Westwood. It's a great program. It allows them to defer their tax payments until their home is sold. So cumulative all years, that's about $504,000. Again, very in line with previous years. State aid was on track. The budget for FY23 was $6.9 million. We received that. There was no mid-year cuts or disruptions. So that's all good news. It was approximately 6% of our total revenue budget for that year. This is also a very reliable and consistent source of income. So it's good to report that that all came in fine. Local receipts, there is a little bit of news here. So our total collections for local receipts, which is all the revenue that comes in for things collected on the local level, was $8.7 million. Our prior year, FY22, was $5.8. So that exceeded our budget by about $4.5 million. And we do normally exceed this budget because of how we conservatively project out the revenue projections for this, for local receipts, which is what we usually do budget for. However, specific to FY23, we had a higher cash balance in our accounts due to borrowing the large amount for the elementary school construction. So we had that money in the bank before it was spent. And then also interest rates recently have been much higher than we expected. So those two things total caused our investment income for FY23 to be much higher than usual. This is an anomaly, sort of. It was $1.9 million in FY23 versus $90,000 in FY22. It's not usual for this account. It's unique circumstances. We can't rely on that going forward, but I just wanted to point that out in case you see our local receipts being higher than previous years. Motor vehicle excise is definitely our largest category. So that was on track, $3.7 million. It was an increase from the prior year. So that's good. That had dipped a little bit during COVID as well. But again, that seems to be back up and going very well. Our meals and hotel tax. As you remember, so in 2017, town meeting established this account for a special purpose fund to hold all the revenue that comes in for meals and hotel tax. This is not required, but it's something that Westwood did, which was a very smart and conservative approach to this. It allows us to sort of set aside those funds to use specifically for capital projects, not operating budgets, because it fluctuates so often. Those numbers are not, a steady source of revenue, like I was saying with the taxes. So it's good that we set those aside to use for special one-time projects at town meeting. So these anything that's spent from this account has to be voted at town meeting to be spent. As you can see, just a reminder, during COVID, these numbers dipped a little bit, but they are back on track. The revenue income from this for FY23 was great. The balance in the account as of June 30th of this year was 2.1 million. Of that balance, 1.1 was voted at the most recent town meeting. So reserved for those projects, which include this list right here of these 4 items. So a backhoe for DPW, a few library projects, a network upgrade at the school, and then the auditorium project at the high school. So also expenditures, as I said, closed out smoothly, which is great to report. Departments stayed within their budget for the most part. Any overages were able to be covered by transfers or supplements at town meeting. So within the expenditure budget, the town usually does not spend, we have tight budgets, but we don't always spend everything within those budgets due to, staff turnover or some of our larger budget items such as fixed costs. Our health insurance can fluctuate throughout the years, and we have to build into our budget those fluctuations. So specifically for FY23, we call this the turn back. So our overall expenditure turn back was 2.5 million. That's out of our total general fund operating budget of just about 101 million. So as you can see, it seems like a lot, but it's about approximately 2.5% of that budget was what we call the annual turn back. So that does turn back and close out into free cash. So when I say we're having our free cash certified this fall, this will be part of that. The DOR looks at everything we've spent from free cash, what we have, and anything we turn back each year. And just a quick snapshot of the detail around that operating budget turn back. It's consistent results. Like I said, it's usually about between 2 and 2.5% of our budget. And over here, there's just a little chart showing you FY22 versus 23 and the different categories within our operating budget and what those turn back numbers were. So as you can see, benefits is really as usual, is the highest one. Like I said, we have town employee and school employee benefits built in there, and there's such fluctuation that we don't always spend that full budget amount. And then the FinCom reserve budget, just a reminder. So this is a fund that we have that we're able to use for unexpected, unanticipated things that come up throughout the year. A lot of times in the history of Westwood, that's been used for snow and ice. So anytime we go over our snow and ice budget and we need funds to supplement that, we go to town meeting, Article 1 or 2, and request FinCom budget approval. So we did not, thankfully, we had a good winter. So in FY23, we did not have to use any of that. So that full reserve account of 405,000 will turn back to free cash. So just a quick reminder of the snow and ice in particular. Like I said, in FY23, we did not have to supplement that account at all. It is legally the only budget within our operating budget that is allowed to be overspent. It just requires town administrator approval. Thankfully, we didn't have to do that this year, so no supplements were needed at town meeting. And the original budget was 450,000, and we kept right within that. The stabilization fund, this is something that the town dedicates funding to each year. It's our main reserve account. It protects us against any kind of emergencies or anything that would come up, such as a COVID event. And if we had revenue sources in other places significantly decrease, this is something that we could tap into when needed. So that was 125,000 from free cash in the previous town meeting. We're just about at our target number. This of 4 million, that will move because in our financial policies, this target number is a percentage of overall revenue that comes in our budget for that. So right now in FY23, that account is currently at 3.8 million. So just about on target. And now getting into the next budget cycle that we have coming up, I'll just give a quick snapshot. This is something that we use. It's usually updated around this time of year. Once we close out and do our recap with the DOR, I'll be updating this. So this column right here, instead of saying budget, will say per the recap. And I will be presenting this to you as we go along developing the FY25 budget. Sort of provides a framework. It's a model, and behind this, there's a million tabs on the spreadsheet, and a lot of information feeds into this. Everything we have for expenditures, everything we have for revenue projections, everything that builds our budget, really. And then we have sort of assumptions built into that model. For example, our operating budget growth for both municipal and school, we assume it's about 3% every year, right? Our health insurance budget, we assume about 6% growth each year. Pension, about 7%. So this sort of shows a snapshot and gives us a framework of how we're going into the next budget cycle and how we need to think about how we're budgeting based on those assumptions. And if anything fluctuates, even, a percent or two, it can throw these deficits in the, out years off. It can increase those depending on what those assumptions feed into the model. And I know you've seen this a number of times, so this is just our tax levy calculation. As a reminder, this will be helpful going to the budget cycle as well. We'll be adding a new column, FY25. Like I said, in October and November, when we finalize new growth and we go through that with our assessors, this will be updated. As you can see, FY23 was already updated in the fall of last year. That number had originally been an estimate as we build to our total tax levy, which is the maximum amount that we can collect in taxes, what a town can raise. And we're limited by Prop 2.5. So this is an important calculation to show what we're able to increase just based on that 2.5% plus the very important number of new growth. So the next time I come back with this will hopefully have a updated number for new growth, which will feed into the next prior year levy limit for FY25, which we'll plug in, and then we'll go through this calculation again and come up with a new number for the levy capacity, which is what we could tax to the full amount. Quick snapshot on debt. So we have a very strong credit rating in Westwood, where we have great financial policies. Before my time, it was built to make sure that the town is able to reach that AAA credit rating, and we still have that. This used to say great interest rate environment. I changed it to good. So we still have a pretty good interest rate environment, but things are changing a little bit. We always look at our debt budget and try to proportion so that the recent debt sales that are dropping off, as we call it in our debt schedule, are replaced with new projects coming online for debt. And just as a reminder, the recent bond sales, the one that sticks out obviously was the summer of last year, the large 56.5 million 30-year term that was for the Hanlon Deerfield project. So, and then prior to that, in March of 2022, there was a $7.1 million bond that went out. Both those rates were 3.7, as you can see, and 2.27. We also had a recent short-term, we call it a band sale, for the 3 design projects that were voted at town meeting of 2022. So we did a 1-year ban for those. We will owe that interest payment in the current fiscal year, and then we will roll that into the next long-term sale that we go out for, the next bond. And as you can see, that's sort of part of, this is what the town has authorized a town meeting for projects that we are going to be borrowing for, but we have not yet issued long-term debt. So here are the 3 projects I just referenced. So the Conant Road design, Canton Street sidewalk design, and then cemetery expansion design. And then added onto that list now is the cemetery expansion for the construction piece, which was just voted at town meeting in May, and the fire ladder truck. So those have been added on. And then just going back as a reminder, we still have 2 small pieces from the elementary school project for the initial phase, as well as the bridge funding. And then the large piece is this construction, the 24 million. And I do want to point out, definitely want to point this out, that we're not expecting to borrow for that full amount. it has been reduced by what we're anticipated to receive for reimbursement from MSBA, which is about 16 million. So we won't be borrowing that full amount, but we have that on there because technically that is what the town is authorized to borrow for. So as you can see, there was definitely a spike in our chart of general fund total long-term debt, anything that's outstanding from when we borrowed for the elementary school project. That will just have the natural decline coming on. So you'll see as we go through the next couple of years that will, as we pay off, make payments towards that principal, that will come down. Just a reminder, as you can see, this is when the town had the high school debt, for example, and that slowly declined. Then anything that peaks is when we try to bring on new debt as old debt is rolling off. As these 10, 20-year-old bonds are coming to a close, we're dropping off large payments. We try to bring on projects in that same time frame to keep our debt service budget as level as possible. And along those lines, we do have strong financial policies related to debt. So the annual non-exempt debt payments, meaning anything within Proposition 2.5, nothing we would have to have a debt exclusion for, should not exceed 8% of the net general fund revenue. So right now that number is 8.4 million. So that would be the maximum the town, according to the financial policies, should stay within. We're definitely well within that right now, where our actual debt service budget for the current fiscal year FY24 is 3.3 million. So that's all positive and we're well within that right now. So just next steps in the budget cycle. Like I said, we have that tax classification hearing in November. We'll come in front of the board with the assessors to go through that. We'll also have a number of meetings in the fall and into early winter with continued updates and reviews of where we are with the FY24 budget revenue projections, any FY25 state aid information that comes in, the tax levy calculations, including, like I said, the FY24 new growth number, which will be coming in, I'm hoping is positive. We'll continue to review capital budget articles, any ongoing annual capital that comes in from our department requests. We'll put those together and present in front of you. Any timing of larger projects needing to be considered. We'll review the FY25 municipal budget requests from the different departments. Those are our base budgets. And then any requested new position, obviously, or program will come before the board as well. FY25 state aid last year was a little bit late just due to the new administration coming in. This year it should be back on track. Typically we'll see a preview of that at the MMA meeting in January. And then that budget document will just need to be available to be released February 1st, which is the municipal budget, the overall budget summary, as well as the capital budget articles. And then that will be presented to FinCom in February with the public hearings after that in March. All right, so that's all I have. If anyone has any questions at all, happy to answer.
Strong work, Stephanie. Thank you for that recap on a strong and smooth close out to FY23, and thanks for the preview of the next budget cycle. Well done.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from my colleagues?
None other than to echo strong work, Stephanie.
Thank you, Rob.
I have no questions. Well done.
All right. Well, thank you again, Stephanie. We will move on to our next item of business, which is a memorandum of agreement with the Service Employees International Union, or SEIU, Local 888. And with us, we have Molly Kane. Welcome, Molly.
Hello. I will walk you through this briefly. So this MOA covers a period from FY24 through FY26, consistent with the other groups. Consistent with what we've done with other groups throughout this cycle is just a lot of documenting of a number of existing practices. So these are things that the town and union have already mutually agreed to, but it's just not written down anywhere. So we did a lot of work documenting those. There's an introduction of a probationary period, the grandfathering of a sick leave payout program where employees would be paid for their sick time when they left employment of the town. No other group has that, so that's just sort of grandfathering that program, and updating language regarding to hours of work and union leave. In terms of economics, FY24 was a little odd. There's actually no cost of living increase for this group for this year. Instead, all employees are going from a 1 hour paid lunch, a 1 hour unpaid lunch to a half hour paid lunch, which will bring them more in line with other groups. And then for FY25 and 26, it's a 2% base wage adjustment across the board and an elimination of the service step, that 10-year service step. So previously employees would have to wait 10 years before getting a step. We just say, you can have that on your 8th year instead of your 10th year. So the union voted to ratify this agreement last week, I believe. And if the board signs off on this agreement, all collective bargaining agreements will be settled with the town through FY26. So I humbly ask that you please approve this, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Molly. It will be great to have all of these resolved through 26 for sure. I don't have any questions on this. Do my colleagues?
No, other than congratulations.
No questions for me.
All right. Well, I will entertain a motion. Rob, are you in a position to do that, or would you like Joe to?
I can do that. I would make the motion the select board approve the memorandum of agreement between the town and the Service Employee International Local Union 888 SEIU.
I'll second the motion.
Right. Roll call. Joe.
Aye.
Rob.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Great work, Molly. Congratulations on getting all of these contracts done. Strong work.
Thank you.
All right, Rob, let me check in with you on our next agenda item. Are you?
I have just backed into the driveway. I have my laptop on the roof of the car. I am prepared to give Chris his review. I will just take a moment to click the link and get onto the meeting from my Wi-Fi, from my driveway, and then I will happily give Chris his review. So give me one moment for Tish to let me in from the computer.
Take a moment, Rob, and while you're getting set up, I'll tee this up by saying we're now going to conduct our performance evaluation of the town administrator for the period of June 1, 2021 to June 30 of 2023. This consensus review will be delivered, as is customary, by Rob Gotti, as he was select board chair for FY23 and was on the board for FY22. And with us, we have Joan Courtney Murray from the town's Human Resources. Welcome, Joan, and Rob, we can see you.
All right. Joan, do you want to give any preamble to this?
Sorry about that. Hello. Sorry about my technical difficulties. Yes, I'm happy to be here to just thank everyone for helping with this review, long awaited. And I'd just like to remind everyone that good things come to those who wait and wait. So take it away, Rob.
Sounds good. All right, Chris. I'm going to begin with sort of the overall statement that I want you to take as the most important thing that we want you to know. We are extremely fortunate to have you as our town administrator. You have done great work building a strong and capable team. Keep that up as you carry us into the future. And I know it can be difficult when you have to have conversations in triplicate, but please maintain your excellent communication with the select board. You have some tremendous department heads. Continue to work with them to develop and modify any long-term goals as necessary to continue to make Westwood a great place to work and live and raise a family. I'll begin with your areas of strength. Research has clearly demonstrated that tough times make people stronger, and you are an example of this in your time here as the town administrator. You began with a unprecedented global pandemic, which challenged everything in terms of the way we did our business, as you can see via Zoom and Westwood Media Center. Thanks always to them, as well as to the ever evolving guidance that we were getting from the state and local and federal levels. You also handled the announcement of retirements of key personnel, Joan being one of them, and were able to find outstanding candidates for our finance and director and assistant town administrator Stephanie, as well as our HR director and assistant town administrator in Molly, and our treasurer in fiscal year 22. You handled each of those things with optimism and a sense of opportunity. Your team reports that you have a collaborative leadership style, and the select board agrees with that, and they respond very well. Using the football analogy that you and I like to talk about, you have a calm in the pocket as things get challenging. I think that serves you, your team, and the town very well. The more frenetic everything gets, the calmer you seem to remain, seeking solutions to many balls that you're juggling, and I do have an emphasis on many. And in keeping with your leadership style, you often deflect credit from yourself in order to shine a light on your other team members so they can be recognized. And you have been known to step in and take the criticism on behalf of others, which is a great sign of leadership. Your communication skills are outstanding. People describe you as an active listener, and that is one of the most underappreciated communication skills. You're very, very thoughtful in your choice of words. You appropriately weigh multiple perspectives and or potential impacts when discussing issues of importance to the town. You are both respectful and respected. Your team recognizes the breadth and depth of your experience and then your knowledge of municipal government and view that as a strength of your leadership. They feel appreciated by you, as evidenced by the recognition you give at team meetings, your personalizing birthday wishes and expressions of gratitude. They also appreciate the respect you have for their knowledge and experience in their respective functional areas. They know you have their back if they need help, but they also know that you're not a micromanager of them. Now, team building is something that takes time, requires trust, and is earned. You're doing an excellent job of keeping your leadership team engaged. The recruiting, vetting, and hiring process that resulted in both the hiring of Stephanie and Molly as town administrator, assistant town administrator, HR director, and finance director is further proof of your team building skills. You've got some tremendously bright, dynamic, and intelligent leaders that you've added to your team, which is a significant benefit to us here in the town. Finally, you're extremely committed to the town and to your role as town administrator. You are available to us virtually 24/7, something that we need to keep an eye on so that we don't have you burn out. Moving to areas for potential improvement. You know, the pandemic forced fewer in-person gatherings and more remote work. Siri's trying to jump in here. The one consistent piece of feedback that we got from your direct report group, the EFG group, was more opportunity to collaborate in person versus virtually. There's a lot gained in virtual meetings, but there certainly is something lost at times. And some senior managers have expressed they feel a little bit disconnected from their peers and that the organization feels a little more siloed since the pandemic. Now, your team has expressed concern about how much you have on your plate as well, arguably due to the multiple priorities from the select board. This impacts your team in terms of your availability and access to them. One suggestion, how might you better utilize our very capable assistant town administrators in the org structure? As with any public-facing position, you are a highly visible role for the town and at times attract unwarranted or unfair criticism. Continue to investigate and address such feedback on the rare occasions that it occurs, but try to take such feedback, not take it personally. As we look towards progress against prior goals, largely due to the pandemic, no formal goals were established for 22 and 23, but much was accomplished by you and your team, including and just concluding with the last of the select collective bargaining agreements. So congratulations to you, Molly and Stephanie, and the entire team involved with that. As far as goals for 24 that will help us achieve our town objectives, we need you to conduct performance reviews for your direct reports, ideally before the end of the first quarter, and then annually thereafter. We want you to establish a forward-looking planning group to help in the vetting and prioritization of the many competing interests for our limited resources. Attention should be paid to both the major expenditure needs as well as future development and sources for new growth. And then obviously we want you to continue to work with us to establish goals for 24 and beyond for the town. So again, reiterating, we feel extremely fortunate to have you. Keep up the great work, and be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Well, first and foremost, thank you. Thank the team for their participating in this process. This has been a very interesting process. And what I mean by that is, for me, having my family, having my mother grew up in Westwood, spending time in Westwood, and then being able to work with this tremendous team along with our elected and appointed officials is it's great. I'm one of few town administrators or town managers in Massachusetts or even throughout the country who are able to do this. But working with a great collection of people makes the job a lot easier. So a lot of this goes to them as well. So thank you, and thank you to all those that I've currently worked with and worked with in the past. So thank you, Joan.
And Joan, just as rounding this out, this is a 360 feedback where you collect information from Chris's direct reports, from select board members, current and past, who've worked with Chris. So I just wanted to talk about that process a little bit. But Chris, again, great job.
I'll just jump in and say that was the process. I was the conduit of information, not a filter. Spoke with past select board members and as well as the current members and all of the members of the executive function group. So this represents a pretty comprehensive feel on how we feel about you, Chris.
Rob, thank you very much for that, and where I can't resist any opportunity to get the last word in. I will just say, Chris, thank you for what you do. I think most people don't know how exceedingly hard your job is. I certainly didn't have an appreciation for that until I was elected to the select board. And how many competing priorities you are asked to work on every single day. And that's pretty much 365 days a year, although we do want you to take time off. I don't think people appreciate how much you work, because again, I didn't appreciate that until I was on the select board. And as Rob referenced, it's not unusual that we might be getting calls from you at 6 a.m. or 10 p.m. and anywhere in between. You are fully committed. You fully own the job. You are a true professional, and the town of Westwood is lucky to have you. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. We will move on. We're almost through our agenda here. We have our regular meeting minutes from August 14, 2023. Any edits or additions?
I had no edits, no additions.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes from our August 14th meeting, regular select board meeting, as submitted.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call, Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. And that brings us to public and press. I see a couple in the Q&A. All right, I'm seeing two folks, Michael Kraft and Nada. Would you please add your address? Our policy is only to read comments if the address is included. So I'll go on. Fran Fusco, 20 Pine Lane. Why would the town overlook giving 3 years of performance reviews for the town administrator? Last review was for September of 2020 for period ending June 30, 2020. So we should see a review for June 30, 21, June 30, 22, and June 30, 23. Can you please explain how someone receives substantial salary increases without having objectives to obtain and be measured by? Well, this review was, unless somebody else wants to take this was for FY 23 and 22. Do I have that right? Yeah.
There were a lot of things, Marianne. I would say that were not business as usual during the pandemic, and we were having to make many adjustments, and this was one that probably was a victim of both the pandemic and the timing of some of the personnel changes. As Joan was on her way out, we had yet to hire Molly, and so that was probably why some of those things were not done as in the past.
Kathy Wallace, 283 Farm Lane. This is concerning that the town administrator's reviews were not done since September 2020. Did I hear correctly that the town administrator has not done annual reviews for the department heads? When were those department head reviews last done? I think that was partly addressed with what Rob answered. I have addresses. Nada, could you please, I'm sorry, add your last name too. I just have your first name. I apologize. I'll go on to Michael Kraft, 30 Coach Lane. Okay, Michael, it just says Michael Kraft on behalf of Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee would like to be heard. Can you type your comment in, Michael? And in the meantime, Nada Milosevic Fabrizio, and Nada says, following Rob Gotti's comments concerning the review of our current town administrator, you can improve how you do your business by opening a window to allow transparency in by selecting Zoom preferences that reveal to all interested parties the full slate of participants and attendees to these select board public meetings. Otherwise, it begs the question, what is the host hiding and why?
Madam Chair, I can try to answer that question.
Sure. Thanks, Chris.
So earlier when we started using Zoom for our virtual meetings, we were getting Zoom bombed. So we had to look at ways to make sure that we could conduct our public business without being Zoom bombed. So what we've done is we put certain restrictions on, so we now have webinars, and as attendees can type in questions as you're reading the questions. That also prevents us or helps us from not being Zoom bombed, where individuals will be taking over screens with, let's say, disrespectful images, words, and comments. So this is a way that we were trying to help control that. And that's also something that we found that other communities were doing back at that time, and we're still doing that.
And Madam Chair, if I may, just as a way of example, one of the very first meetings that I experienced with Chris was a planning board meeting where we were such Zoom bombed by a number of misogynist and racist type of commentary attacking both Chris and our former town planner, Abby. And when we had to close that meeting down, I instantly called Chris to make sure that he was, in a good place. And I couldn't get through to him. Why? Because he was already on the phone with Abby, making sure that she was in a good place. So I have to tell you that that was my first peek into the character of the man who is our town administrator.
Okay. Michael Kraft, 30 Coach Lane, has written, chairman of the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee. The committee wants to be heard regarding the Canton Street sidewalk project. The committee strongly supports sidewalks and all steps to increase pedestrian and bicycle safety throughout the town. That said, we want to share with the select board several concerns that have been raised by our members and the public at large during the past 2 or 3 meetings of our committee. The primary concern is the construction of the 10-foot wide multi-use path. The path itself will likely provide tremendous benefits to the town and the neighborhood, including greater opportunities for neighbors to easily visit and commune with one another, pass safely from one end of the roadway to the other, etc. However, in building this path, there will be many large and old growth trees removed, and this will likely greatly affect the character of Canton Street and the neighborhood in a negative way. Our committee would prefer to see a meandering path, and it leaves off there.
Madam Chairman, may I?
Yes.
So I respect certainly Mr. Kraft's position and his position that he's articulating. This is not on the agenda tonight. And to discuss this further would be to risk an open meeting law violation. He's certainly allowed to make his statement and request that this be brought up at some future meeting when people are given the opportunity to know what's on the agenda and to speak about it.
Okay. There is a comment from John Cummings for Chickadee Lane. I could not agree more with Chris's review. He is always professional and incredibly helpful. Chris, thank you for all you do. You are a great asset for the town. Actually, I just got more on Michael Kraft's message. Pat, can I just have the leeway to read the rest of this?
Into the record, yes.
Okay. So this is the rest of Mr. Kraft's comment. At the very least, we think it imperative that the large trees that will be removed be marked, as well as the line of work, so that the public can better assess the impact. In addition, there will be a 6-foot buffer between the street and the pathway, which is important for safety. There are also many locations where there are stone walls, many of which would be moved back behind the new path and sidewalk. We would prefer to see the path as well as the sidewalk on the opposite side of the street, constructed behind the stone walls where possible. In fact, we surmise that the buffer could be smaller and even safer if the walls were moved closer to the road between the roadway and the path and sidewalk. Certainly, this will greatly increase the aesthetics. Finally, there is a perception from what we have heard that there has not been public involvement. Residents have expressed that they are being told that this is the plan and there is no flexibility. They feel that they have not been adequately involved in the process. The committee suggests that there be a Canton Street Sidewalk Committee appointed, including members of the neighborhood and other stakeholders, the head of the DPW, Select Board, Town Planner, Planning Board, and others, that would evaluate the current plan and which could make and consider other alternative plans before this becomes a final design. This should not be strictly a yes or no vote on the one and only plan that is presented. In conclusion, we very much want to see a sensible and aesthetically pleasing sidewalk and bicycle accommodation on Canton Street, but we are fearful that the current plan without modification could result in a detriment to the neighborhood and the town at large. If this project is completed and not well received, it could seriously impact our ability to build new sidewalks elsewhere. The cost of the project and the availability of state funds should not be the only consideration in making this decision. And then I do have a further question from Kathy Wallace asking when the department head reviews were last done. Chris, can you help us with that?
Sure. The last reviews were done. They're following my review. So our team will be reviewed for 2 fiscal years, as I was just reviewed for 2 fiscal years. But I just want the board to know, and clearly for those who are watching, there are daily, weekly, monthly conversations that I do have with the direct reports. So there isn't. I don't want anyone to think that people are not having. We're not having conversations throughout the workday, the work week. Even though the reviews has not getting done. The reviews will be done for those 2-year periods.
There's a follow-up question from Fran Fusco relative to that, Chris. How can you award a raise without a review? Again, because I do have those conversations with them on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. I do know their performance. I have not put pen to paper, but I have had ongoing conversations, both challenging ones at times, as well as very positive ones, mainly more positive than challenging, with the team members. So I, again, have a very good understanding of their performance. It's just putting pen to paper. Right. Is further question from Kathy Wallace, 283 Farm Lane. Is the $1,027,249 ARPA school request in addition to the 1,100 ARPA funds that were previously approved by the board in 2022? Is this a new expenditure or was it part of the original project plan? What is the status of the $1.8 million turf field that is being considered at the new elementary school? Why is ARPA money not being allocated for the new fire station? I can certainly answer part of that, which is that this allocation is in addition to the 1.1 in ARPA funds that was previously approved. The request was as made tonight with respect to payment for HVAC, which will free up funds for the project, and it was discussed tonight what is going to be recommended by the PBC chair to the Permanent Building Committee relative to buying out the contract with Amoresco, which will be a savings to the town of $3 million. I'm unable to answer with respect to the turf field. We heard about what the recommendation will be, and it's important, as to the last question, that these funds must be allocated by the end of 2024. Let's see.
And Madam Chair, if I may, Chris, please clarify, but I don't believe that the fire station, any of the fire station project was eligible under the restricted ARPA funds, which was where this money that we voted to allocate tonight was coming from, correct?
Well, just as a point of clarification, we have yet to get the completed feasibility study for the fire station. Once we get the completed feasibility study, we would then take a project, as we took the schools, to town meeting for authorization. So we haven't gotten to that step yet. The school project is an approved project from the community. And to put funds towards a project that has not even been presented at town meeting, again, with that timing that Rob and Marianne have talked about, that's where we would have a challenge. Not knowing what would be eligible from that project. It could be the HVAC system, but that project has not been approved yet. I understand it's the select board's #1 priority, but just to be clear, the new fire station feasibility study has yet to be completed. We're expecting something in October, and then we'll have a discussion with the board on next steps.
Okay. Just going to say there is one other question I'm seeing, but I'm going to reserve on that because I want to seek a legal opinion on that. So I will follow up with the resident directly.
Can you show me where it is, Madam Chairman? Because I can't seem to find it. If it's what I think it is.
It's 7:33 p.m.
Yeah, I don't think it's still on the list, is it?
I see it.
Okay, I don't happen to see it, but
Just do a screenshot and send it to town council.
so if it's what I think it was, I saw it earlier, and I think it's improper to have a discussion about an individual without giving that individual notice and opportunity to be heard. So I would encourage you not to raise that issue.
That was my concern. And the last question I'll read here is from Kathy Wallace at 283 Farm Lane. What are the steps that need to occur after the Doran Whittier report is completed in October? Will that presentation be made at the October 11th meeting? That is not on our agenda for tonight. We did talk about our plan going forward. So we're not going to get into that plan now. With that, I'm going to announce that our next meeting is on Monday, September 11th at 6 p.m. via remote participation. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Madam Chair, it looks like Joe has his hand up there.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joe. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Joe. I missed your hand.
I'm trying my best.
It really literally
I just-
fades into the background of your sunset.
All
there.
right, I'll pick a different one next time. Let me pull it down first. Rascal. I
Go
just want
ahead.
I just wanted to say that I've always performance appraisals for the employees, I believe, are very, very important. I think Rob, you gave an outstanding appraisal, but then again, it was easy because the guy's a rock star. I think it's an opportunity for the select board to go forward, and that's it. It's water over the dam. I think we should just go forward. I'd also like to say I'm so grateful it isn't raining, because Rob, I'm not sure how you would have popped in here in time. So I'm glad you got to finish the meeting out your driveway there. Thanks.
Yes, but now the mosquitoes are coming, so I'm going to
Yeah.
make a motion to adjourn if I may.
I'll second it. I'll second it.
All right. Roll call. Joe.
Aye.
Rob.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Good night, everybody.